अधिभूतं क्षरो भावः पुरुषश्चाधिदैवतम् अधियज्ञोऽहमेवात्र देहे देहभृतां वर.
The perishable aspect is adhibhuta, and Purusha, the indweller, is the adhidaivata. I alone am the adhiyajna here in the body, O best of the embodied. Deha bhrutam vara. Krishna places Arjuna on the highest pedestal by calling him the best of the embodied. He encourages him by saying, and in fact what he's doing is he's calling all of us the best of the embodied. Because we have this unique opportunity of being born in a culture, as we saw earlier, where everything is designed to promote the sattvic nature in us. Everything is constructed in such a way that your progress to that state of self-realization is well thought of, well designed. And we have access to this wonderful knowledge. So, best of the embodied. Here in this verse, he answers the other three. He says, Adhibhuta is the perishable nature, matter, the five elements, Prakriti, which is subject to change. Adhidaivata is the individual, the experiencer, the combination of matter and spirit. And Adhiyajna is pure spirit, Atman, the presiding deity, the pure consciousness in each one of us. So it's like this. Let's take an example. There is that mighty sun above, and during the day, wherever there is a reflecting medium, wherever there is a mirror, what happens? A reflected sun is created. Okay? So, now what happens is, the moment the reflected sun comes into being, that reflected sun loses the original properties of the sun and acquires the properties of the reflecting medium. So, if the sun is reflected in a dewdrop in winter, the sun becomes minuscule, the sun becomes cold, the sun loses the power and the heat of the original sun. If the sun is reflected in a mighty ocean, it is huge, it has a lot of light, and so you find that wherever there is a reflecting medium, the reflected sun that is created seems to lose the original properties and acquires or takes on the properties of the reflecting medium. This is exactly what happens to all of us. So there is that Brahman, or in this verse as he calls it, Adhiyajna. Adhiyajna is Atman. Atman is unmanifest. Wherever there is a reflecting medium means wherever there is a mind and intellect operating, the reflected Atman appears. Reflected Atman is nothing but the individual you and me. When we are born, or when the reflected Atman comes into being, we lose the properties of Atman, and the individual acquires the properties of the reflecting medium, which is the mind and the intellect and vasanas. So even though you and I are Atman, we seem to have lost the properties of Atman and taken the weak properties of the particular mind, intellect created by your particular vasanas. And so when the Shastras, when the great masters tell us that Tattvamasi, you are that Brahman, you find it unbelievable, because you say, how can I, this stupid creature, this selfish nut that I am, how can I be God? And yet it is true. So all you have to do is take away the reflecting medium, smash the mirror. Instantly the reflected sun has gone and your attention shifts to the original sun. Similarly, the whole of the spiritual path is nothing but rising above the mind and the intellect, getting rid of your vasanas, and then this original splendor that you are. Robert Browning called it imprisoned splendor, beautiful term. That you and I, we still have the splendor, but it's imprisoned. And who put you in this prison? You yourself. How do you get out of the prison? By your own thinking. There's a story of Houdini, the magician, who made a claim that I can get myself out of any prison in the world. Any lock I can open. So what they did was they took up the challenge and they made a specially designed prison for him, and they put him in. And the moment they put him inside that prison, he came out with a little 6-inch piece of metal, and he set to work to unlock himself from that prison, to remove the lock. And he tried and tried for half an hour. He found he couldn't open the lock. He tried for 2 hours, he couldn't open it. 6 hours, he couldn't open it. The whole day he tried and he couldn't open it. And eventually he gave up and he said, I can't open this lock. And he was so exhausted that he leaned against the door. And the door opened. You know what it was? They actually had not, whoever created that was brilliant. They put him in a prison and they did not lock it. So the lock that he was trying to unlock was not really there, it was only in his mind. His claim was right, that he could unlock any lock in the world except a lock that was in his mind. And that's the case with all of us. This prison that the splendor has been put into is self-created. And that's why we're having such a problem getting out of this prison, because we are going about it the completely reverse way, exactly like Houdini. Just as Houdini tried to unlock himself thinking there was a lock there, a non-existent lock. Similarly, we've put ourselves into an imaginary prison. If it was a real prison, you can get out of it. But an imaginary prison is what is tough. And so, the 18 chapters of the Gita help us to get out of this prison, self-created prison, imaginary prison, illusory prison. Next verse.